The money fraud. Information provided to H.E. Cardinal Mamberti and the Vatican Chancery Court regarding our claims March 6, 2005, January 19, 2023 in Seek. The centerpiece fraud of frauds, the Big Kahuna underwriting, and supporting absolutely all these other mammoth fraud for profit and war profiteering schemes, is money. Money started out innocently enough in the form of tokens, coupons, or warehouse certificates issued to merchants who were stuck warehousing and distributing and keeping track of various commodities. It was a convenient tool, nothing more. In ancient Babylon, gold coins stamped with the image of a wheat basket allowed the bearer to collect a bushel of wheat from any royal grain storehouse. Both the gold and the wheat had actual value in and of themselves, and those values were equal at the time all this got started. It did not stay that way for long. What happens if a famine sweeps Babylon and a plague of locusts eats the New Year's crops, so that the demand for wheat and the perceived value of wheat skyrockets? Suddenly gold loses its parity with wheat. Due to market conditions, it now takes 5 gold tokens for the bearer to receive 1 bushel of wheat. This simple example demonstrates the fundamental problem with all commodity-based money standards. Our notions concerning the value of anything may change in the twinkling of an eye, causing disruption of entire civilizations. We are facing exactly such a situation now, when the supply and demand related to another basic commodity used as a money standard, petroleum, is being threatened. So our minds become engaged with how to solve this problem, and it never occurs to us that we are working on the wrong problem. We cannot control the transitory nature of value, though we can coercively control supplies of commodities and even engage in price controls. These are merely market manipulations. The problem is much deeper, and it is simply this: money is an idol, and those who create money and use it for purposes of trade are idolaters. The bankers, like the attorneys, come to us straight from Babylon. Whether coins or paper notes or certificates, we carry graven images in our pockets and representations of these graven images on bank ledgers every day, and we think nothing of the insanity involved and stay stubbornly unaware of what we pay for this convenience. Some organization, a government or a banking cartel like the Federal Reserve, creates an idol and calls it a dollar, a ruble, a yen, and so on. The people in that country are then forced to worship this man-made idol, by exchanging their goods and services for it. This enslavement to their illusion, their patent fraud, is what the bankers are talking about when they say we give value to their currency. Our value, our goods, our services. According to the bankers, this is all a voluntary donation on our parts, a tithe given to their god, Mammon, who provides them with wealth and power. Nothing has changed since ancient Babylon, except that the idolaters have figured out cheaper and cheaper ways to make their graven images. What started out with gold coins, was gradually shifted to fancy engraved paper, and now, these same charlatans want us to accept non-physical representations of their representations, so-called digital dollars, that cost them nothing but a few keystrokes on a computer to make and which can disappear just as easily. No issue under the consideration of ecclesiastical law is more urgent, for these fakirs have enslaved mankind to an illusion, and defrauded people of their lives and substance in inequitable exchange for a mere symbol of value, an idol, which they create the same way that other men create gearshafts. It's the biggest con game on earth and has been for the last 8,000 years, because no matter what material they use to make their idols, the lives and the substance produced by others will always be far more valuable than anything the idol makers produce. We wish for both attorneys and bankers to be forced to wear the clothing of ancient Babylon as the emblems of their trade, so that people can recognize who they are, where they are coming from, and what they are still foisting off, by fraud and by force, on the rest of us. Even such a simple and kind punishment should be sufficient to convince many of them to give up their devotion to crime and deceit and rethink the basis of their religion. Between the attorneys deceiving people into thinking they are purveyors of law and justice, and the bankers deceiving people into thinking that their idols have value, it is no wonder that people are increasingly confused and alienated. Everyone on earth can sense the vast fraud. At some level, they know that they are being duped and cheated, even if they have never consciously delved out the truth. People certainly know that the municipal corporations housed in the District of Columbia are forcing this system of things on them, by forcing them to exchange their goods and services for IOUs. This could only be accomplished via the abuse of the power of government and so-called legal tender laws, imposed under color of law. But as we have already seen, these municipal corporations are not our government. These municipal corporations and their boards of directors have no contract to meddle with our gold and silver coinage or issue credit in our names, nor do they have any legitimate war powers or emergency powers. These are commercial service vendors in the business of providing, in the words of Article 4 of every federal constitution, essential government services that are defined and limited by the constitutions that created these phantoms. We notice that as Abraham Lincoln was promoted and elected under conditions of fraud, and as he was prohibited from serving as the actual president of either our Federation of States or our American Federal Republic, nothing he did had any lasting value. The entire mercenary conflict was all conceived as a British bunco scheme and war for profit. Everything resulting from the so-called American Civil War is tainted by this fraud, including Lincoln's introduction of the practice of issuing executive orders, including General Order 100, also known as the Lieber Code, and everything associated with it. No corporation executive in the history of this country has any ability to legislate or create any equivalent of law applicable to any member of our general public. So at last Jefferson Davis's revenge has come true. What began with fraud must end at last, even such venerable frauds as the idolatry and the court systems of Babylon. We wish for an immediate transition to a prepaid credit system by which people worldwide may quickly and simply receive back the value of taxes, mortgages, utilities, interest on bogus loans, and other payments that they made, but didn't owe. We wish for physical gold and silver coinage and physical asset-backed currency, such as the gold-backed American Federation dollar, as a stepping stone transition to a totally new way of viewing and conducting lawful trade between individuals and nations. We wish for this aforesaid transition period to be used to educate all people on earth about the money fraud and the court fraud so that these things can never again be used to enslave and indebt and make people miserable anymore, and no longer provide unjust enrichment to idolaters, and no longer be a motive for war and violence. We wish for the institutions and practices that were created and used to support and enforce the current fraud, including the central banks, to be wound down and phased out, the giant pension funds and other slush funds gradually dispersed to pay for infrastructure and other worthy needs worldwide. We wish for the creativity of mankind to create a new vision of value, including our own infinite potential and infinite value as part of a creation that is also beyond all value that we can imagine. We wish for all eyes to be opened and all people to be cherished in their as-is condition, and then we wish for them to be restored and healed and for all resources to be employed on their behalf to make this possible. We wish for the municipal corporations to be left in the past, only serving as a reminder of what not to do in the future. Issued by Anna Maria Riesinger, Fiduciary. The United States of America in care of Box 520994 Big Lake, Alaska 99652. April 26, 2023.